sometime. Oh, I guess it never hurts to hurt sometime.
Yeah.
How about ya?
That's my song. We'll have to come A and D and E.
Okay.
Come on, D-Dog, let's hear it.
This one's
I got a ways.
walking in the Blue Ridge with you, Junior Sisters. Ready? I held your hand in San Francisco, kissed your lips in New Orleans. We've been up north and way out west, and all points in between. But home is where the heart is, and my heart is in these hills, and it always leads me back, and I know it always will. Walking in the Blue Ridge, oh what a sight to see. Roaming through the mountains, each step of memory. I've been all around this wide world. Still my favorite thing to do is walking in the Blue Ridge with you. Shenandoah down to Georgia, a picture so serene. Caroline simply divine, like strolling through a dream. Each stroke upon the canvas, a master's work of art. We go up the hills and down the valleys, hand in hand and heart to heart. Walking in the Blue Ridge, oh what a sight to see. Roaming through the mountains, each step of memory. I've been all around this wide world. Still my favorite thing to do is walking in the Blue Ridge. Now walking in the Blue Ridge.
Yeehaw.
Very good.
Well, Chuck wanted this song, so I wrote it up for him, and I'm going to see if I can do it today. If I can't, I'll just shut it. D for Delta. Driftwood on the river.
On the sea.
Ernest Tubb. I'm just driftwood on the river, floating down the tide. I don't care where this whole river carries me. I keep drifting just because my heart is broken inside. And I'm tired of wishing for what cannot be. I may meet some bit of driftwood lost the same as I. Share a handshake and a tender tear or two. But it's always good luck how we've got to say goodbye. I must wander on to keep my rendezvous. Though I drift from town and city
my sunshine. Everybody knows it.
Okay, okay.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my holly away. The other night, dear, as I laid sleeping, I dreamed I held you in my arms. When I awoke, dear, I was mistaken. So I got my guitar and played. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Please don't take my sunshine away. Cowboycha.
Hank song, Cold Cold Heart.
Okay.
Love that song.
I tried so hard, my dear, that you're my every dream. Yet you're afraid each thing I do is just some evil scheme. A memory from your lonesome past keeps us so far apart. Why can't I free your doubtful mind and melt your cold, cold heart? Another love before my time made your heart sad and blue. And so my heart is paying now for things I didn't do. In anger, unkind words are said that make the teardrops start. Why can't I free your doubtful mind and melt your cold, cold heart? You'll never know how much it hurts to see you sit and cry. You know you need and want my love, yet you're afraid to try. Why do you run and hide from life? To try it just ain't smart. Why can't I free your doubtful mind? Your cold, cold heart. You play that D. memory. The more I learn to care for you, the more we drift apart. Why can't I free your doubtful mind and melt your cold, cold heart?
Yeah.
No. It's in G, George. Here we go. There was a girl on my mind, I can't get over, that would break the heart of any man. Without her, things would fall to pieces. Well, I'm dreaming about my Marianne. Oh, I'll just keep touching up my gray hair, live and hope someday she'll understand. Well, it's no matter if I live to be 100. There'll always be a place in my heart for Marianne. Well, I know she's out there somewhere in a world that can't be found. Just to think of her still tears me down. And if teardrops were pennies, then I'd be a wealthy man. From the tears I've cried for Marianne. So I'll just keep touching up my gray hair, live and hope someday she'll understand. Well, it's no matter if I live to be 100. There'll always be a place in my heart for Marianne. Oh, it's no matter if I live to be 100. There'll always be a place in my heart for Marianne.
Yeah.
I listened to that run to give you the time.
Play that a few times, make her down.
G for George. Or D5, however you want to play it. I'm gonna play it in D5. You come home late and you come home early. You come home big when you're feeling small. Come home straight and you come home curly. Sometimes you don't come home at all. What in the world's come over you? What in heaven's name have you done? Broken spirit
in a bar in Toledo, across from that depot, a bar stool, she took off her ring. I thought I'd get closer, I walked on over, I sat down and asked her name. She was a beauty, but when she come to, she must have thought I'd lost my mind. I couldn't hold her, for the words that he told her kept running back time after time. He picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille. Poor hungry children, crops in the field. I've had some bad times, lived through some sad times. This time you're hurting, won't you? You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille. He finally left us. I ordered more whiskey. She said, let's go have a ball. From the lights of that bar room to a rented motel, we walked without talking at all. She was a beauty when she come to me. She must have thought I'd lost my mind. I couldn't hold her, for the words that he told her kept running back time after time. He picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille. Poor hungry children, crops in the field. I've had some bad times, lived through some sad times. This time you're hurting on me. You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille. You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille.
Old Jimmy Rogers song, or not Jimmy Rogers, Jimmy Martin song. Get the right Jimmy here. Ocean of Diamonds. You don't remember that one?
I like Jimmy
You never heard that?
Never heard that. Sing it for
I
me.
don't think.
I give an ocean of diamonds. Oh, boy, she jumped right down the throat.
Why?
I give an ocean of diamonds, the world filled with flowers, just to hold you close, dear, for just a few hours. To hear you whisper softly that you love me too, would change all the dark clouds to bluest of blue. Some people drink champagne out under the stars, while others drink wine lean over a bar. But all that I need to make me feel fine is to know that your love will forever be mine. I give an ocean of diamonds, the world filled with flowers, just to hold you close, dear, for just a few hours. Hear you whisper softly that you love me too, would change all the dark clouds, bluest of blue. I don't drink their champagne, I don't drink their wine. So if you day that I die, as long as I live here, still hear me crying. Give an ocean of diamonds, the world filled with flowers, just to hold you close, dear, for just a few hours, to hear you whisper softly that you love me too, would change all the dark clouds, bluest of blue, would change all the dark clouds, bluest of blue.
Cowboy D.
I got in there, application right off. I'll try to do it like William did.
I've heard of Willie and Ray.
Crazy old soldier. I've had fame and fortune, women come knock on my door. I've lived to the limit and maybe a little bit more. There's so many stories of how I got out of control. Some say it's a woman, some say it's my troubled soul. Like a crazy old soldier, fighting the war on my own. Just me and the whiskey and the bottles are 10,000 strong. Could think I'd kill her as many times as I've been hit. Like a crazy old soul, I just don't know when to quit. Barrooms and bedrooms are just faces, places, names. Once for the pleasure, Lord knows, once for the pain. I've tried to forget her and all of the things we've done. But as long as her memory, I'll never hang up my gun. Like a crazy old soldier, fighting the war on my own. Just me and the whiskey, bottles are 10,000 strong. Could think I'd kill her as many times as I've been hit. Like a crazy old soldier, I just don't know when to quit. Like a crazy old soldier, I just don't know when to
Crazy old soldier.
quit. Yeah.
I'd like to pass.
Busted flat in Baton Rouge, headed for a train, feeling nearly faded as my jeans. Bobby thumbed the diesel down just before it rained, took us all the way to New Orleans. I took my old mouth harp from my dirty red bandana. I was playing sad while Bobby sang the blues. Windshield wipers flapping time and Bobby clapping hands in fine. We sang every song that driver knew. Freedom is another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing but it's free. Life was easy living, Lord, when Bobby was with me. Feeling good was good enough for me. Oh yeah, good enough for me and Bobby McGee. From the coal mines of Kentucky to the California sun, Bobby shared the secrets of my soul. Standing right beside me, Lord, doing everything I'd done. And at night she kept me from the cold. Somewhere near Salinas, Lord, I let her step away, looking for that home I hope she'd find it. I'd trade my tomorrows for a single yesterday, holding Bobby's body next to mine. Freedom is another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free. Life was easy living, Lord, when Bobby was with me. Feeling good was good enough for me. Good enough for me and Bobby and me. Good enough for me and Bobby and me. Or something like that.
Tim hadn't done this one with me, but he's going to try. A, D, and E. This is a pretty easy one.
Without DW and Chuck hogging the show, you got it, man.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
You heard this one before?
I have it.
Nail my shoes to the floor.
Yeah. I guess we're going to hear it right now.
Yeah. Nail my shoes to the floor, glue my coat to the door, take my hat, throw it far, far away. Hide the keys to they were, just nail my shoes to the floor. I spent the better part of my life walking in and out of your. I've been a restless, reckless run around, but something tells me you won't let me leave it one more time. So before my feet start walking, tie me down and nail my shoes to the floor, glue my coat to the door, take my hat, throw it far, far away. Hide the keys to my car, and if I ask you where they are, don't say a word, just nail my shoes to the floor. I guess I really love you and I die if we should part, but I'm so weak and so inclined to roam. That's why I'm begging you to put your arms around my heart. Don't leave me anywhere but home. Nail my shoes to the floor, glue my coat to the door, take my hat, throw it far, far away. Hide the keys to my car, and if I ask you where they are, don't say a word, just nail my shoes to the floor. No, don't say a word, just nail my shoes to the floor.
My shoes are nailed to the floor. I got no.
That's a cute one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like that.
Death is an angel sent down from above, sent for the buds of the flowers we love. For each soul that blossoms in this world must be will bloom as a flower in the Master's bouquet. Gathering flowers for the Master's bouquet. beautiful flowers that'll never decay, gathered by angels and carried away, forever to bloom in the Master's bouquet. Loved ones are passing each day and retire, as in the way of the soul of a flower. Truly it's so far in heaven on the way. So is a flower in the Master's bouquet. Carrying flowers for the Master's bouquet. Beautiful flowers that'll never decay, gathered by angels and carried away, forever to bloom in the Master's bouquet, forever to bloom in the Master's bouquet.
We need a recording.
Have you noticed the new streets? You know the ones I'm talking about. The ones with new bike lanes that benefit pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. In an effort to promote the use of our valley's great transportation options and make our community a great place to live, all of the jurisdictions, in partnership with the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada, are enhancing our roadways with complete streets as part of the Southern Nevada Strong Initiative. Complete streets are roadways designed to include room for drivers, transit riders, pedestrians, and cyclists.
Like this area at First and Clark.
Or right here at Highview and Valley Verde.
Or this rapid flashing beacon right here on Alexander Road and Arcata Way.
Or right here at Georgia Avenue and Adams Boulevard.
Or right here at Pioneer Boulevard and Grapevine Road.
Or here at Fort Apache and Elkhorn.
Complete streets are designed to be safe for all users, regardless of how you choose to travel. Do you want to see more complete streets in your neighborhood? If so, you can contribute $2 to the Complete Streets program when you renew your vehicle registration online at dmvnv.com or at any of the convenient DMV kiosks located around town. Just in the past year, the DMV collected $130,000 that will be used to install new bike lanes, school zone flashers, and pedestrian signals. This means a better roadway for cyclists and for children walking to school. This means a better road.
For you.
For you.
For you.
For you.
For you.
For you.
For more information on Complete Streets, visit RT.
Hi, I'm Mike Pacini, Community Affairs Director for Boulder Disposal. Citywide no-sort recycling is here. Boulder City now has expanded a citywide, comprehensive no-sort recycling program. It is so simple to use and proven to increase recycling results virtually overnight. Welcome to the Boulder City Recycling Center, where thousands and thousands of tons of your recyclables are diverted from being buried in our landfill. You can now recycle at home, at work, and at school. The new recycling program is totally easy, so do your part, aim for zero waste. How easy is it, you ask? You throw all your recyclables into one bin and you're done. And it's that simple. Just put your cart at the curb before 6 a.m. every Wednesday to ensure pickup.
Recycling is now available for single-family and multifamily residences, including apartments, mobile home parks, and RV parks.
The new program includes businesses, schools, and parks too. So no matter where you are in Boulder City, you can do your part.
The industry term for no-sort recycling is single stream. In its simplest terms, what used to be multiple streams of recyclables needed to be separated by the homeowner in advance of pickup. The no-sort method combines all the streams, paper, plastic, and glass, into one. All participants need to do is throw all recyclables into one container. And due to technological advances in recovering the materials, nearly all of the waste is effectively recycled. Be sure to review the No-Sort Recycling Guide brochure that came with your container to ensure proper material disposal. Recyclable guidelines are also indicated on the container lid.
Boulder City, with your continued commitment to recycling and our new BC Waste-Free No-Sort Recycling Program, we are confident we can more than double the amount of recyclables kept out of our landfill. All homeowners can participate in the citywide BC Waste-Free Curbside Recycling Program. Each homeowner will be provided with a green 65-gallon wheeled recycling bin.
All recycling will be collected on Wednesday every week. Place all recyclable materials in the green bin and wheel it to the curb. Remember, the green bin should have no food, yard waste, clothing, styrofoam, wax-coated cartons, or cups. It's very important to keep the green bin for our recyclables only. Once your green bins have been emptied, the recyclables are trucked to the Boulder City Recycling Center and unloaded.
It's here at the Boulder City Recycling Center where your recyclables are loaded into containers and trucked to the main recycling center in North Las Vegas. So no matter where you are in Boulder City, you can do your part. Aim for zero waste. For those residences requiring additional recycling bins, please email us at contact@bcwastefree.com or visit us online at bcwastefree.com. Improved recycling is vital to the future of our city and our planet. Aim for zero waste. I'm Mike Pacini, Community Affairs Director for Boulder Disposal, and together we'll make Boulder City cleaner and greener.
Well, sheep are hard to see.
People would see bighorn sheep down by Mercury, mostly rams. Rams wander.
They're hard to see, and there's probably not very many of them.
We never saw evidence of a reproducing population until we started the project on cougars and found that they were eating bighorn sheep.
Mostly they kill what is available to them in their environment.
We use a helicopter to capture various types of wildlife.
They're very unpredictable. They're extremely secretive.
We had some observations of mountain lions around active projects and facilities. There was a biologist attacked in the early 90s. So from a safety standpoint, we wanted to understand kind of the core range, the habitat use of mountain lions.
The Nevada National Security Site, formerly the Nevada Test Site, is a 1,360 square mile rugged landscape 68 miles northwest of Las Vegas, Nevada. Scientists here are collaborating to learn more about the newly documented populations of bighorn sheep and cougars. And it's not easy.
We're studying bighorn sheep and cougars on the Nevada National Security Site, looking at predator-prey interactions. And the project started as a study on cougars. What happened is, as we first put collars on cougars, we found out that they were actually eating bighorn sheep.
Central questions of the study are how many bighorn sheep and cougars live here, and what is the status of their populations. And health studies of captured animals are clarifying whether wildlife here are at all contaminated by radiation.
For bighorn sheep, life is about risk from predation. And so in order to escape from their predators, they tend to stay in steep terrain, rocky terrain, and they particularly pick these types of areas when lambs are born. So in order for the ewes to protect the lambs, that's the best they do, is to stay up in these rocky areas. And the subspecies that lives in the desert is Nelson's bighorn sheep, and they are able to exist on these desert mountain ranges. Mostly they eat shrubs, and during the springtime they focus on annuals. They eat a lot of winter annuals, little plants that you see flowering out in the desert. Sheep tend to avoid areas that are very bushy because they don't have good visibility, so they like to see where the predators are. We need to know about their general health because there have been some disease issues in this area. There was an outbreak of pneumonia in the populations in southern Nevada, and it's been pretty serious.
In understanding what the health profile here is on Department of Energy land on the Nevada National Security Site is going to help us understand the bigger picture.
An important part of the bighorn story, scientists learned, are the cougars.
Cougars are very solitary animals. Their densities are low on the landscape, particularly in the desert, where prey densities are low. They have large home ranges, and they're primarily nocturnal. So it's really very rare to see a cougar out while you're just out hiking, especially during the daytime.
One tool we use to monitor mountain lion activity around the Nevada National Security Site is with motion-activated cameras. We've set up 20 to 30 of these cameras over the last 10 years at various sites around the NNSS, and we found, actually documented 680 images, recorded 680 images, both video clips and photographs of mountain lions, which is a staggering number of images to understand where these lions are found and the frequency of use at these different sites. And it really helped us with our trapping effort as well, know where to set the traps and where to look for the lions to get them captured.
The cougar, also commonly known as puma, mountain lion, or panther, is the largest cat in North America. An average male weighs 150 pounds. Cougars are known for their strength, agility, and exceptional ability to jump. Their powerful legs enable them to leap 30 feet from a standstill or jump 15 feet straight up a cliff wall. Mainly solitary, cougars interact only to mate. Females then raise the young while males return to their solitary lifestyle. Each cougar establishes its own territory. They need a lot of room to roam.
The environment that we have here is the driest ecosystem in North America with the Mojave Desert. Transitioning into the Great Basin Desert. So very dry, arid area, prey density is pretty low. So these animals are having to cover large areas to support themselves.
The cougar research here began due to concerns by the Nevada National Security Site over safety for the site's employees. In 1991, a biologist here survived a rare attack by a hungry, malnourished cougar.
So from a safety standpoint, we wanted to understand kind of the core range, the habitat use of mountain lions. Also get a handle on how many lions are out there, population estimate, and just learn more about their movements and the potential risk to workers out there. So we started with cameras with Erin Boydston with USGS. Worked with her, set up a bunch of cameras around the site in mountain lion habitat.
Trail cameras were placed at springs, which are important watering holes, and also at sites along roads and in canyons to look for evidence of cougars.
Got a lot of pictures of both young adults, male, female, so we knew we had a reproducing population of mountain lions. We had somewhat of an understanding of where the lions were. They were using roads as travel corridors, they were using areas around springs. We documented 6 individual lions within a 90 square kilometer area over a 2-month period. With the data we had from the camera traps, we knew we had a reproducing population of mountain lions on the site, and so we wanted to understand their movements better, and so we took it to the next level and worked with USGS, who contracted with Brian Jansen to come and capture mountain lions for us so that we could put the radio transmitters on them and track them with radio transmitters and really understand their movements and their habitat use and their diet as well, using the radio telemetry.
Most things in life you can eventually, with a lot of practice, master. You just cannot master catching lions. Every lion seems to have a whole bunch of aces up their sleeve that they've always got the upper hand, and it's dang near luck to catch one. I'm Brian Jansen, and I'm a mountain lion and bighorn sheep biologist. So I've been camped out here for the last 18 days on the Nevada National Security Site in a region called Rainier Mesa, tracking lions, looking for fresh sign, setting traps, and just trying to find them and catch them. They're pretty difficult to even find, let alone catch. There's two ways I capture mountain lions. I use foot snares, and I place those on trails that I know mountain lions are going to use, either from recent sign or just my estimation. And then we also use the hounds. So on a normal day, what we would do is check our traps in the morning, and if we don't find anything in the traps, I'll go to places where I think a lion might have gone or places that lions frequent and park, and then we usually walk a loop about 10 miles, me and the dogs, and I'm looking for tracks at the same time the dogs are sniffing for lion scent. Sometimes I can't see the tracks because the ground is hard, but they leave scent, and the dogs will pick up the scent. I will let the dogs scent trail the lion as far as they can, and I will follow the dogs on foot. And in the course of a day, they might lose the track 4 or 5 times, and I'll have to help them find it. And we keep going. While we're doing that, the lion is sleeping in their daybed because they're nocturnal and they walk around all night. And so we're following the scent trail of what they did the previous night. And when we get to the lion's bed, the lion's not there anymore because he heard the dogs coming and they get up and move. When we hit that spot, that scent is so fresh, the dogs blow out of there fast and usually catch the lion within a quarter to half a mile. When the dogs start putting pressure on the lion will find a place to seek refuge. They'll either climb up a tree, go down in a hole, or get out on the edge of a cliff. Some place that they can protect themselves from the dogs. And then I tie the dogs up because I don't want any dog to fight with the lion. And then I dart the lion and immobilize it. I protect it from falling while it's being immobilized. Once it's immobilized, I bring it to a safe location and then take whatever the project wants.
The tranquilized lions are weighed. The scientists look for injuries. They take body measurements. They look for parasites and sample for evidence of disease. They examine their teeth. They draw blood and attach an ear tag. Finally, they fit the lion with a satellite GPS tracking collar. The rest of the research begins after that. They release the animal on site and begin to follow as the satellite data pours in.
Hey guys, come on.
The 2 lions I just recently collared are both adult males. One was about 5 to 6 years old, one was about 3 to 4 years old. They weigh about the same, 125 and 130 pounds. The project will be able to track these lions wherever they go for the next 2 years, I believe. So one of the things we found in the past is that these lions just make tremendous movements. One lion I collared on the site went, in a matter of a week, went 70 miles to the west across Death Valley. Killed deer over in the Cottonwood Mountains, crossed Death Valley back, hunted around in the grapevines, went up by Goldfield, comes back to the site, back across Death Valley. You could never do that kind of research without these satellite collars. I mean, the things that we're learning and the extent to which these lions are roaming just far surpasses what we ever knew before.
GPS collars that permit tracking are also a crucial tool for studying bighorn sheep.
Today, we are putting GPS collars on bighorn sheep in the Nevada National Security Site.
You guys back to the airport afterwards, right? Yep.
This is a new population of bighorn sheep that we just found existed a couple of years ago, and we need to have information about where the sheep are, how many there are, possibly their movement patterns.
Our gunner is the guy in the front seat generally, and he leans out and shoots the gun to catch the animal. Usually that's the first animal that he'll net, and then the mugger will hop out of the back seat, and he'll go out. He'll restrain the animal, and he'll work that one up, while me and the gunner will go out and catch another one. Flying a helicopter, especially a small single-engine helicopter in 30-mile-an-hour winds, can be challenging at times, especially when you're working in steep terrain and you're trying to get an animal to go to a certain spot where you can safely make a capture on it, and your crew can get out and work it up where it needs to be too. We obtain biological data, including blood samples and nasal swabs, and they'll be able to look at those samples and test them for different types of sickness the sheep might have. But a very important part of the project was placing tracking collars on these animals.
And then they attach the collar and let the animal up, and they're done. And it's pretty fast. So these are the collars that we put on sheep, and we put these same collars on cougars. We have the GPS VHF unit down here, and then we have satellite uplink. Here's the antenna for the satellite uplink. At the end of the study, this little mechanism has a charge in it, and it goes off and breaks off, and the collar falls off the animal. We then go out and retrieve the collar.
That satellite GPS collar is especially indispensable if for no other reason that we're on the Nevada National Security Site. We don't have ready access to this site. And what that collar is going to do, it's going to uplink with satellites, it's going to enable us to have real-time or near real-time positional data over seasons, over years. And that's going to give us very valuable movement information.
So we look at differences in habitat use throughout the day. So we know areas where sheep particularly like to forage and where they might be bedding. We're hoping to look at lamb bed sites so that the test site has an idea of important areas for the sheep population on the landscape. Sheep select for cliffs and steep, rugged areas at night, of course, when they're bedding down, which is also the time that mountain lions tend to go hunting.
Predator-prey relationships, they're always important, and they change over time. What we see on the Nevada National Security Site with respect to large-body predators like mountain lions impacting potentially desert bighorn sheep, we also have to think about another big game component here, and that would be mule deer. We do have a mule deer resource on Department of Energy lands.
Mule deer are the most common prey of cougars on the Nevada National Security Site. Tracking the collared cougars has clarified which animals they prey on and how widely they roam.
We have captured to date 9 animals. We put radio transmitters on them, and they operate with satellite, so they take locations at pre-programmed intervals. Usually it's about every 6 hours or every 4 hours, so multiple times a day. And we get coordinates for those locations that are emailed to us, and then we can pull those up in GIS and look at their movements.
We can find out when they've made a kill. What happens is lions seem to never stop moving. They're really quite amazing. They're always moving around, and normally the points that are 4 hours apart, the GPS locations 4 hours apart, they might be a mile apart from each other. So the lion's moving around all night long, doing whatever it is they're doing. And when they kill something, it takes 2 to 3 days for them to eat that item, because it's a large item, it's a deer-sized animal. So all of a sudden they go from moving a mile every 4 hours to staying in the same spot for 2 days. And what happens is those GPS points overlap each other, and we call that a cluster. It's a cluster of points. So what we do is after the lion leaves that cluster of points, we go and see what they were doing. And ordinarily, the only thing that's there is a dead animal. And so we're finding anything from gray foxes up to deer-sized animals by doing that.
There's a seasonal difference as well. They prefer mule deer. That's their main prey. And what we found is that the prey, the mule deer, will concentrate on the higher elevations of the site. Rainier Mesa, Paiute Mesa, where there's a lot of forested cover, as well as sagebrush meadows, and that's perfect habitat for the mule deer. And so the lions will congregate around that summer range, which is concentrated. During the wintertime, the snow comes, it gets cold, and so the mule deer will move off those high elevation habitats to the lower elevation habitats. There's just a large area, and so the deer get dispersed over very large areas. This also brings the lions down into bighorn sheep habitat, really rugged, steep country, canyons and that. So the lions move off to follow the deer, but then come into contact with the sheep. And so what we're seeing is a seasonal change in diet. They'll take primarily mule deer in the summer, fall, and then they'll shift to mainly bighorn sheep during the winter and spring.
But what we think is going to happen here, potentially anyway, is that we'll see a little nucleus of sheep maybe expand into what could be considered a viable little population on Department of Energy land.
One of the other reasons that we wanted to do this study was the Department of Energy is mandated by law to document potential radiation exposure from test site activities to the off-site public. One of those potential pathways is wildlife. So game animals such as bighorn sheep, mountain lions, or mule deer can potentially come on site, eat some contaminated material, and then go off site and then get shot and eaten by a hunter. That's one of the potential exposure pathways. And so we wanted to understand those movements both on site and off site. And we also wanted to identify what the radiological burden was of these animals. All of the sampling that has been done over the years has found really that from the residual radiation we're not seeing really any effects. And we actually go out and study the plants and animals that are using some of those contaminated areas. All of that information is put into our annual site-wide environmental report that explains the radiation doses and stuff. And again, like I say, we're not seeing levels that are harmful to the animals or people that would be eating those animals.
As science goes, this is a particularly elegant study. An impressive array of tools, skills, and expertise have led to insightful results on the health to monitor and protect the local ecosystem.
I just like sheep. They're spectacular. I just love working on sheep. I mean, if you're out and you watch them, they're just amazing. They're surviving in the desert in the middle of nowhere. They walk on these little steep, tiny little cliffs and walls, and they're just gorgeous.
But Brian Janus was amazing. He knows mountain lions. He knows how they move through the environment. Without him, we wouldn't have any animals to study.
They have a difficult life. If you think about it, these lions are walking around 5 to 10 miles every night looking for something to kill with their teeth and their front legs. Once they hit 10 years old, their teeth are pretty well wore out. They don't usually live a lot longer than that. In fact, the vast majority of them never even reach 7 to 9 years old.
I like working with bighorn sheep because it's a native animal. It historically occurred throughout the state. There are so many questions about bighorn that it takes science, good researchers doing good work to answer these questions.
It's a team effort to obtain the correct data so they can make the correct decisions on how to manage those animals so that we can maintain the resource.
It is a special feeling, I suppose, knowing that you're doing good stuff. It's a good feeling. It feels like you did work that really counts for something.
Tomorrow I'm going to pull up some of my gear, cameras, trail transmitters, some traps, and then I'm going to pick up camp and head home.
Let's go. Vamos.
Excuse me, Sir Legs-a-Lot. How's a girl supposed to go about her business if you've got socks in every single dryer in this joint?
Well, I suppose you're just going to have to wait. I should be done in 3 or 4 hours.
3 or 4 hours? But I don't even have a full load.
This looks like an opportunity for compromise.
Oh, my goodness, Dr. Broccoli, I watch your show every day.
Where'd you come from?
Never mind that, Pinky. Now, let's see if we can find a way to work together so that we all leave here with dry feet. Or whatever those things are.
Hey!
You, sir, obviously have more than your share of socks to dry. Why don't you let Pinky here put some of her laundry in with yours? And Pinky, perhaps you could give him half of the quarters you were planning to use.
That would be fair.
Yeah, that's okay with me, too.
Oh, that's wonderful. We all win when we use compromise to solve our problem.
Could I get your autograph?
Compromise isn't selling out. It's the way our democracy works. Wait a minute.
Sorry, lady, but you can't park your bike on this here sidewalk.
But I'm working here. I'm a delivery bird, for pizza's sake.
Later that night, Pinky got together with all of her fellow delivery birds, and they formed a special interest group.
We've got to overturn this law that says delivery birds can't park their bikes on the sidewalk. Who's with me?
The SWDBU went on to urge legislators to change the law prohibiting the parking of bikes on sidewalks, but met fierce resistance from another special interest group, Concerned Citizens for Uncluttered Sidewalks. After hearing both sides, lawmakers added an exemption to the law that allowed delivery birds to park their bikes on the sidewalks temporarily while making their deliveries. Both groups called the decision a success. That's the role that special interests play in our democracy, giving voice to groups of like-minded individuals so that everyone's ideas are represented in our government.
Hey, Bruce, we ought to eat these red bugs for lunch.
What, are you crazy? Those red bugs will go straight to your hips. Now, these blue bugs over here, these guys are delicious. Let's eat them for lunch.
No way. Blue bugs will kill you. High in the sodium. You're nuts, Bruce. We're eating the red bugs.
Blue bugs.
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 Red bugs.
Blue
Red
bugs.
bugs. Red, 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 red.
Just as Pinky and Bruce had a hard time agreeing on what to eat, people disagree about the laws they want to pass and which policies to adopt. The arguments that legislators have with each other in Congress and state legislatures are reflections of the disagreements among we, the people.
There sure are a lot of us. Do you ever feel like you just don't have a voice?
What are you talking about? Send an email to your state legislator.
Huh? Who's that?
That guy right there.
Hey, what's up? Your state and federal legislators are your voice in our government. They don't speak for themselves, they speak for you. That's why it's crucial for you to be involved with who represents you. In last year's election, only 62% of these birds even registered to vote. And of that 62% who registered, only 2/3 of them bothered to vote. That means only 2 out of 5 are using their voice. What a shame. And voting isn't the only way to get involved. You can pay attention to what goes on in government and call, write, or visit your state and federal representatives. You can also join special interest groups with other like-minded citizens to let your representatives know how you feel. There are so many ways to get involved, and you definitely have a voice. Now go out there and use it.
What do you guys want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
1, 2, ready, go. Gonna pull the stops, gonna make it go. Drop down, gag them bound, just sitting down and getting nowhere. You're living on a wing and a prayer. Gonna put them things together.
guys want to do now?
A plan of attack, like something that maybe the military would use?
It's a plan that my daughter uses to plan for her basketball games.
Strategic plan is how I get my wife and kids in an area that they don't want to be.
It's a document that's strategically done.
A strategic plan would be the implementation of a vision.
A strategic plan is a guiding, fluid document that helps the city plan for its future. The goals and objectives have been identified through community input.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to City Council. It's good to see all of you. We will start with our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, and our invocation will be given by Pastor Adam Stetson from Christian Lutheran Church. Thank you.
Let us pray. Lord, you rule the nations of the world, giving government to oppose injustice and oppression. Give wisdom and truth to all those you've appointed, that they may serve faithfully to promote all that is good and right and prevent and punish evil. We pray you to place your blessing on all those who serve your people in government, the police, firefighters, emergency medical personnel, and the armed forces. Give them good and honest hearts for their service, and lead them by your word to know and do what is good and right for all people and in accordance with your will. We pray for this community, for those elected and appointed to positions of leadership, for our judge, for the welfare of our community and the welfare of us all. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. In the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. All right. We do have one or more swearings in tonight. One swearing in tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could call up Steve Rudd, the newest member of our Planning Commission. If you could raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Steve Rudd.
do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and the Constitution and government of the state of Nevada and government against all enemies, whether domestic or foreign, and that I will bear true faith, allegiance, and loyalty to the same, any ordinance, resolution, or law of any state notwithstanding, and that I will perform well and faithfully all the duties of Planning Commissioner of Boulder City, Nevada, on which I am about to enter. So help me God under the pains and penalties of perjury. And congratulations and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Steve. Next council meeting, you have to repeat that from memory without making any mistakes. All right. Next, we have our public comment, our initial public comment, which is a public comment period devoted to agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item? Judy.
Judy DeShane. Item 7 was the one for the, oh shoot, I forgot my notes. Well, okay, so let's see what I can remember. That's on the ballot for the $40 million. When I was reading through it, the background on that, it says for the aquatic center, and then it also says recreational projects and equipment. Are they buying bats and balls? I mean, because they really haven't decided what we're having for an aquatic center or for a new swimming pool, let's face it. So, I mean, I'm just somewhat concerned that up to $40 million and it could be used for other than the swimming pool. And then item 9, which is the ad hoc utility, that I felt was very poorly worded and put together. This ad hoc committee was something created by the citizens, strictly voluntary, in order to help the council. And the way that these proposals are, it totally goes against any way we've set up committees before. And I am very against both options on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Others on an agenda item? Okay, we will close initial public comment period and move to our approval of the regular agenda. Madam City Clerk.
No changes.
Mr. City Manager.
No changes.
And we have Mr. Gary Booker filling in tonight as our city attorney.
No changes.
Attorney.
No changes.
Thank you for being here. Council.
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Next is approval of the consent agenda. Madam City Clerk.
Yes, Mayor, we're asking to remove item number 2, please.
Okay, thank you. Mr. City Manager.
No further changes.
Mr. City Attorney. And we'll come back to council.
Move to approve with changes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we'd like to recognize our 4th graders with us tonight. There are a few of you. Could you please stand so we could see you on the camera? You can see yourself if you look up there. And thank you for coming. They're working on their Nevada citizens, and they are great citizens. Thank you. Thank you. Feel free to participate tonight, too. All right. Our first regular agenda item is consideration of Bill number 1844, related to Schuyler Townsite LLC. And we have Mr. Armentrout to introduce that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Brock Armentrout, your contracts real estate manager. This is Bill 6893. Excuse me.
1844.
1844. You approved 6893 in the consent calendar. I was so excited about getting a grant that it was just stuck in my mind. Bill 1844 is to extend the option period for the Skylar solar option leasehold. This site's located just west of the Boulder City Municipal Airport, and it's been known on some maps as the town site southwest site. On the solar map that's on the wall is that yellow area at the very top of the map. The site was originally leased to Korean Western Power Company. Because of issues that they had back home, they sold their leasehold or option interest to Skylar, which then entered into an extended option agreement with the city, which does expire this February, if not extended today. They have been working with city staff for the past 6 months to extend the option an additional 3 years. And during that negotiation, we also realized that there are some requirements in the original option agreement that at the time we thought would benefit the city, and as we analyzed them, it turned out it would have hurt the city. One of which was the original option agreement required them to give us 1.5 megawatts of solar energy. On its face, it sounds like this is a good deal, free power. But it turns out, under the way we're regulated by federal government and other entities, solar energy is not considered a firm resource, and so you have to have in spinning reserve someplace the same amount of power able to turn on at a moment's notice in case that intermittent resource goes dormant. In our case, when a cloud comes over or this time of night, it's not producing solar. So finding out that we were paying for those same electrons, we sought an alternate means to satisfy this requirement with Skylar. We found out that in addition to being in the energy generation business, they're also in the energy brokering business. And we worked out a deal where we would get discounted power up to 5 megawatts at a discounted rate for the 30-year life of the contract once the option's leased. In comparison, our current power contracts outside the Hoover and Schedule B hydro contracts, we pay up to $46 to $47 a megawatt hour. This 5 megawatt requirement in the lease, once it's exercised, would provide us power at $39.95 a megawatt hour, roughly savings of $5 per megawatt hour. And this is for the full 30 years, and it's shapeable power. The solar, it was take it. It's 365 days a year, and we would have had to have spinning reserve for that amount, whether we used it or not. With the 5 megawatts, we can shape when we take that power. There are 4 months of the year, for example, where we survive solely on the hydroelectric power and we don't need to buy power on the market. Under this agreement, we wouldn't have to be paying for those 5 megawatts. We'd only be paying for them when we actually needed them. Once the lease or option is exercised, they will be paying $1,500 an acre for a 30-year term with 2 10-year options. For reference, that $1,500 an acre for the first year would be just over $1.5 million a year, and then it would escalate at 0.75% a year throughout the life of the agreement, including the option periods. During the option period, it does increase by 3% each year that they don't exercise the option, and it does expire February 1st of the year 2022. We anticipate, and they anticipate, that they'll exercise well before then, as they are working towards establishing a power purchase agreement with an off-taker. But at staff suggestion, we want to play it safe, and that's why we did a 3-year agreement. Staff is recommending that we approve this bill, and representatives from Skylar, their attorney Linda Bullen, and their COO Gerald Balbo are here to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments, Council? Mr. Hare?
Well, at first, I'd like to commend you on the negotiating process and also this report containing the information of why it doesn't make sense, economic sense, for Boulder City to have its own solar field. I've been trying to explain that for many months now, and And now we have it in black and white, so I'm going to warn you, I'm going to steal that part of that report. What was also particularly interesting in reading the document is that in addition to providing solar or having a solar plant, the plan is also to have some storage facilities. And this is pretty much state-of-the-art stuff. I'm glad that we're negotiating at the point that we're dealing with the state-of-the-art rather than what was effective 20 years ago. So I just have good things to say about this agreement.
Thank you. Mr. Schuman. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I too have good things to say with this agreement. I think you made some nice changes between the last option and this one. The one thing you didn't mention was the option exercise payment of $4.1 million upon construction. I think that's a particularly good point to mention here. That's $4.1 million that's given to the city as soon as they exercise this option, begin construction out there. So a lot of favorable terms in this deal, and like Councilman Harhe said, I've been answering that question a lot too, is why don't we just get free solar? And you know, it's a tough one to answer. It's now a little bit easier for us to answer. Still a little tricky answering it, but we'll do our best. So we appreciate you converting that. And then my question is, of the 1,032 acres, if they exercise this option, do they have to use all 1,032? Can they use less?
They can use up to. Most of our agreements are that way, where they're option agreements where they can exercise in whole or in phases or not at all.
And I guess I'm just curious, is that the intention? Is that where they're going with that? Does it seem like that?
It's my understanding they'd like to maximize the footprint so that they can make the most utility out of the interconnect that they have at the Meade substation.
All right,
if we had more land, I'm sure they'd be happy to take it.
Mr. McManus.
A couple of things that came up today when we were discussing this at the briefing was the escalator clause is at 0.75% per year over the 30 years. That's a little bit lower than some of the most recent contracts, but the cost of power that's been negotiated is flat over that period of time. So for a 30-year period of time, we get that power at this $39.50 a megawatt. Is that correct?
$39.95, but yes, that's close.
Okay. So again, as Mr. Schuman had said, there are some favorable terms in here for us. One of the questions that Mr. Schuman had too was if they were to develop only 300 acres of this, what would that do as far as the terms of this go? Does the option expire on the remaining amount? Do they pay on the remaining amount?
They would continue paying a prorated amount on the remaining amount for the option through February 1st of 2022, and any land not exercised at that point it becomes unoptioned.
Okay, so we would then have the option either to work with them or another company?
Or do nothing, correct.
Okay. Something that I think needs to be pointed out about this particular project is this is going to be the first project that's away from the dry lake bed. It's going to be very visible as we come and go from Las Vegas. This will now stretch from just west of the airport all the way across the Searchlight Highway. Is that correct?
That's
It'll
correct.
follow along the I-11 bypass?
Correct.
So 1,032 acres, it's going to be obvious, I'm guessing.
It won't be missed.
Yeah. And again, I think it's important for the residents to understand that as these contracts move forward, the open space out there goes away. These projects are using up very large tracts of land.
That's correct.
Okay. Another concern I had was this placement of a substation. We spoke about that again at the briefing. Plans for future service to the western half of the city, when the actual intent is to be able to provide power out to the I-11-95 interchange. That was the initial construction, to move that substation out to the northernmost part of the project.
The current option agreement does require that their on-site substation, where they take power to the Meade substation, be at the northernmost point of the development. Through the negotiations, is relocated to the southeast corner of the project with the understanding that at such times that the city needs power delivered to the interchange, that within their leasehold they would extend a appropriate transmission line to that point where we would then take delivery at the north end of their leasehold.
Okay, and the power that we would buy at the discounted rate has nothing to do with that substation? That power comes out of the Meade substation?
Comes straight out of Meade through our own tap.
Okay, so again, what I'm getting at is this substation is really not for any current use for Boulder City. It's designed to provide power further out from our existing city footprint?
No, all solar projects have an on-site substation, and that's the purpose of the substation, for them to collect all the power, dump it into the substation, then it's wheeled over to the Meade substation from there.
Okay, but again, the initial plans or the original plans on this were to provide power further out from our existing footprint?
We would have had the ability to place our own transformer and then take delivery at that point.
And again, the reason I'm asking this is as these projects are being built, or this particular project, the idea is we're going to extend. The plan was to develop that interchange out there, and this would have been the means to get power to it.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Levitt.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick comment that I think everybody's covered all the points that we at least discussed in our briefing, but I just want to point out that Linda Bolin, who represents this company, has always made herself available to us, so my assumption is that most of the council members, if not all of us, have had a chance to meet with her and discuss this with her as well. So in addition to our briefing, we...
Thank you. Mr. Harvey.
I just have a comment on the discussion regarding the power plant, because I asked those specific questions. And really, from a technical standpoint, this is the reason why it's been relocated, to provide a better and more economical access to the Meade substation.
That's correct.
And the Meade substation has one remaining connection to the grid. And from what I understand, the plan is they've already arranged to have that connection. And so by relocating the substation, it makes that technically more feasible and more economical. I think there always is concern regarding projects that rise from the dead, and Mr. McManus has basically called out the worry and suspicion that somehow this is going to revive the Hoover Dam Gateway Center project, which I believe has been dead. I don't know. I don't believe it's a Lazarus type program, so I'm completely willing to drive a stake through the heart of that program, because we're not ready for that kind of thing. But we are ready to get cheap electricity, and we are ready to have some more income.
Thank you. And I appreciate Skylar's accessibility too, as well, Linda Bolin. Always very professional in the way they reach out to us, and thank them for that. So with that, I would go ahead and move for approval on this.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move for approval on this agenda item.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. Next is item number 6, consideration of bill number 1846, land sale agreement, BC Holdings LLC. Mr. Arnold.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Brock Armanchot, your contracts real estate manager. This is Bill 1846 to approve a land sale to BC Holdings LLC. They own a residential lot at the northeast corner of Avenue I and Nevada Way on the Hemingway Valley side of town. This is for 6,885.47 square feet. This is to correct a deficiency that was created many, many moons ago when the original subdivision was developed. It was felt that a road was going to go in a different location. It never went there. But in the interim, their driveway was built to access the property, and to access the right-of-way, it had to go across city property. So this corrects this deficiency where they will now be immediately adjacent to right-of-way, and their driveway will no longer cross a no-man's land. Acreage has been enlarged somewhat, a little larger than what's required for the driveway, as a prior owner had established some really nice landscaping near the driveway and we want to include that nice landscaping in with what they were purchasing. Mr. Roger Williamson is the landowner of BC Holdings. Should you have any questions, he's here to answer them. Otherwise, I'm sure he'll be very happy to hear a motion to approve. Staff's recommending approval.
Okay. Any questions, council? No, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item number 7, Resolution 6894 regarding issuance of general obligation bonds and notifying the Debt Management Commission. I have Diane Pelletier, our Finance Director.
Thank you. Resolution 6894 is the next step following the January 8th Council approval of a ballot question to fund an aquatic center for $40 million. And that's at the high level. But what this resolution does is allows us to go before the Clark County Debt Management Commission to inform them of this decision. And they will be meeting on February 7th, I believe, to do that. So this allows us to petition them to go before them to talk about our upcoming bond issue on the ballot. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions? Mr. Schuman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just curious, Dan, why does it take council action to go before the bond committee?
We have to go before them to talk about the affected governmental entities, of which there aren't any, but that is part of the Nevada process. I'm kind of new to that process too, but that is what Bond Council has instructed us we need to do. They drafted the language of the resolution petitioning to go before them.
Thank you.
I believe that's in NRS 350.013. That's was referred to in your information, and that's what requires us to go to the authority that would guarantee that?
Yes.
I have a couple of other questions about this. Again, it's been discussed. The $40 million is well above what the consultants had come in with. Costs were added to that, as being said to be required. We had very little time as a council to look at alternatives on this. I think that's very unfortunate. We've also are going to be asking the public for $5 million out of the Capital Improvement Fund to go towards this project, which could potentially reduce that $40 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Or any other items we can discover between now and the time the voters would approve it. We'll be looking for other options, alternatives, means of financings. The $40 million is on the top end, but we are pretty confident that we wouldn't have to sell that many bonds.
And I just want to clarify for you, when you say look for other things, you mean look for other financing options, not other things to spend
Well, there could
money.
be other revenues that we could allocate towards payment of debt.
Right. I'm just getting at, you're not referring to any other parts of the project, just the financing part of it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. One thing that I've observed, I serve on the Debt Management Commission, and one thing I've observed on there, which we may want to be prepared for, are questions as to why we're asking for this amount if we're not actually planning on spending that amount. It is a concern of that. All of these amounts go under Clark County's bonding authority, and they don't like seeing that authority get pigeonholed for projects that the money won't be required for. So I think that's something that we would need to be prepared for. I too noted the question that was brought up in public comment. This ordinance that is being looked at tonight does not specify the project that this is to be spent on, other than that it will be a recreational project. So I'm not terribly comfortable with that. I think when we ask the residents for money, we should be telling them exactly what it is we intend to spend that money on. And that's not clear in the wording that we have. And last point, the resolution misstates, I believe, the intent of that NRS 350.013. It is the governing body of the municipality that is supposed to submit the information. And again, the wording in that specifies the mayor, whereas the statute specifies the governing body as a whole. So again, I think we do need to be careful when we quote statute that we comply with what is in that statute. I know that probably wasn't something you wrote, but I just want to clarify we need to make sure we're clear on what we're quoting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ari. Now, I would like to reiterate my takeaway from what's been happening and try to boil it down to a more easily understandable situation. What we're asking the citizens to do is to give us a line of credit, essentially. And let's say you have a homeowner or a couple that wants to buy a new home. One of the first things they do, they go out and find out, well, how much will the bank lend me? And let's say the bank says $400,000 is your limit for the house. That's what we agreed. That's all in. That's all we're going to do. And the bank may make some other requirements, and one of the things is collateral, obviously. And so they're going to look to that couple and say, well, how are you going to pay this back? And in the normal course of business, personal loan or whatever, your income is good as well as the deed on the house or the land. But in business, it's much different. In business, the bond people, they say, well, your revenue stream for us is not enough collateral. What we need to do is have hard numbers in case you need all of this money that you're asking for. And that the collateral of a project in process is zipped because something happens. So again, in order to keep our bond rating high, we have to perform and we have to show up that, yes, we're committed to this project. And that in the worst case, I see it as the worst case, we have to go to the citizens for the money. I would much prefer, I agree with Councilman McManus, that the $40 million is off-putting. Again, I expressed my concerns before about some of the things in that pool design and wanted to get the costs. And I see at least one thing, $250,000 could be sliced off immediately, and that's the tennis courts. And the reason being is tennis courts are not a high technology item. They don't need to be built at the same time the pool does. They can be added on, after the pool is built, and that $200,000 doesn't need to become $400,000 if it's borrowed or paid back over the long term. And so there's a lot of manipulation, so to speak. The fact is already we're going to step up with the city saying $5 million. But I would see that our one of my goals would be to replicate some of the financing that took place for our present pool. And if we look back, there's not a lot of taxpayer money in building that pool. There's been a lot of taxpayer money keeping it running and a lot more required. But we got the bulk of the money from the Max G. Fleischman Foundation. And we then got additional grants from the LBCA. And we got additional money from Levi Strauss. And as it turned out, we didn't really need to borrow any money. We built it with those foundations and gifts and philanthropy and so forth. But we're saying in order to get this thing started and get it rolling, we got to establish the line of credit. Then maybe we're going to borrow it. The city would step up for the $5 million as a kind of a interest. Yeah, we're committed if the voters improve. But I think what it is for the pool folks is not to concentrate equally on the aspect of out of the box thinking to get to the point that we don't have to go and increase taxes in the future. Now, that may be a pipe dream, but there's a lot of pressure. People want to have a new pool. They said it in all of the surveys. The problem is the next slide shows they don't want to pay for it. So we understand. I understand that. So it's kind of a ironic situation. So I think it's incumbent upon us in the city is to understand that and not sit back and say, oh, well, we got a $40 million line, we'll use it all up. I'd like to have the $40 million okay and not use a penny of it. I think what happens is when you pass this, if the citizens agree to pass this, it shows philanthropic agencies and other people that were intent on building this pool. We're committed to do it. And how about stepping up and giving us $20 million? Now, that might be a pipe dream. We might get 20 people giving $1 million, or 20 companies that, for them the money falls out of the sky, if you know what I mean. So that's my thinking, and I think you could look at it two ways. You could look at it case black, oh my God, my tax rates are going up. They're not going up unless we do our job, and don't do our job, rather, in terms of raising the money. But I think there's a big misconception on this $40 million number. And because usually, in my experience in business, is the first number heard is always the number that sticks in everybody's mind. The reality is that this is not going to be an actual $40 million pool. That's my offering tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. McManus.
I would just say it makes people real uncomfortable when you give government a checkbook and tell them to write their own check. So, again, I agree we need a new pool. That's unquestioned. We need a new pool. Let's just hope they're going to give us that checkbook.
Mr. Schuman.
So this is an interesting position we're in now because we already have the ballot question in place, and now we're going to the bond council. So
it's the debt commission.
Oh, I'm sorry, the debt commission. I don't know if that could have gone the other way. I mean, what if the debt commission said no? Then why do we have a ballot question? Just throwing that out there. Either way, this is the way we're going. I find myself in a precarious situation too because I wasn't in favor of the way the ballot question was written. I wasn't in favor of the $40 million number. I too thought there was alternatives out there and would have liked to see that explored a different way. And now that we have the ballot question on there, it's hard for me not to support this next step as we go down the line. With that said, there's language in this resolution that goes right against what I felt at the last meeting, which is these bonds are expected to require a property tax levy for 30 years. The bonds are estimated to result in an increase in the property taxes that the owner of a new $100,000 home will pay, average $126 a year. So now I'm being asked again to vote on something that will raise taxes on every single citizen in Boulder City for 30 years, and I'm still not comfortable with it. So, I'm not sure how this process is going to play out. I will say that a pool is an absolute priority in this town, and we need to find a solution to it. If this were to not pass at the next election, we're back to square one, trying to figure out how we're going to pay for this pool. I'd rather be there now, figuring out how we're going to pay for this pool. So, with all of that information there, it is an interesting situation where we're at right now. We'll just kind of have to see how this plays out. Thanks.
All right, so this is kind of a ministerial step in the process if we want to proceed. And if so, I'd entertain a motion to do so.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move for approval of this agenda item, resolution number 68. Am I on the right one? Yeah, 6894.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, and that's one dissent, Mr. Schuman. That motion carries. All right. Item number 8 is our 2019 land management plan. Mr. Michael Mays.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Michael Mays, your Community Development Director. As previously noted by the Council and the Mayor, there continues to be public confusion over this agenda item. And I believe one of the reasons for this confusion is the title, Land Management Plan. Plan implies that a thorough evaluation has occurred to determine the appropriate uses for a piece of land that have been evaluated and adopted. That is not the intent. Instead, this is the beginning of a transparent process to consider if the city is interested in the potential lease or sale of any city-owned property. As I note later in my presentation, there are additional steps and opportunities for public input depending on the proposal. This is only the preliminary first step. Therefore, for the sake of clarity, for the rest of my presentation, I'm going to refer to LMP not as land management plan, but the land management process. And we'll see how many times plan slips in there. Somebody will be counting, I'm sure. That one didn't count. There we go. So, the purpose of the MLP, it was adopted by ordinance in 2001 to formalize the process in which the city considers the potential lease or sale of public land. One of the reasons this was adopted by the community was previously the city would enter into discussions with potential purchasers or people considering leasing a property, and the public wouldn't be aware of the process until later on during negotiations or when it was first considered by the city council. And so this formalized a very transparent process to allow the community to have initial public input. What the LMP does not do, it is not the city's master plan. It does not amend the city's master plan. It does not rezone property. It does not approve development proposals or approve the sale or lease of land. All those actions require additional steps and consideration by the city council, and in many cases, if rezoning is warranted or amendment to the land management plan, additional public hearings to provide the public further opportunities to comment on these potential uses. On the city's website, we have an overview summary of the MLP process. We've broken it down to provide information on how the annual process is conducted and the steps. In addition to the summary, we also have on the website a list of the existing parcels identified in the process, as well as corresponding maps that I'll get into a little bit later. The annual process for the MLP begins each year in September when notice is put in local newspaper regarding the city asking for any interest in city land for consideration to be added to the MLP. Then each October, we present to the City Council any petitions for consideration of inclusion of land as part of the MLP. In November, the Council, if is interested in forwarding those inquiries, will advance them to the Planning Commission to provide feedback back to the City Council. And then every January, February, before February 15th, the proposals come back to the City Council, and City Council adopts the annual MLP. This year, for the 2019 MLP, there was only one proposal. That was the Silver Peak LLC request to consider the addition of 667 acres to the MLP. And as you know, Silver Peak has withdrawn their request for consideration. So what that leaves for your consideration tonight is the existing LMP, the 2018 LMP, which has 23 properties on the list. Now, also in your packet, you have a letter and matrix from Councilman McManus that shows several additional parcels as part of that letter. The discrepancy there is that several parcels have been removed by the council in previous years and or have been sold or leased. And so that's why the current LMP has 23 parcels. Corresponding maps are included in your packet, and as you can see on the screen above, are separated into two areas. The northern part of the community, which is referred to as the urban area, has the majority of the parcels that is on the LMP. And then there are additional parcels at the southern end, which we refer to as the El Dorado Valley area. So your objectives are for this evening to consider the LMP, which staff is recommending adoption of the 2018 plan for 2019, to hold a public hearing and to make recommendations for its adoption or any modification of the LMP.
All right, thank you very much. So we have no current parcels proposed to go on the plan, but several that are proposed to come off. And do we want to attack the easy ones first, or Mr. McManus, do you want to speak to some of these that you...
Well, again, my apologies for using an old map. I could have saved myself quite a bit of time of not having to go over all of those. But again, I do think that there are some that are on here. You know, if you add these up, we're approaching 4,000 acres of land on our land management plan, certainly well over 3,000 acres if we added up all the acreage.
I don't have the total number, but I will assume that that is accurate, yes.
Yeah, I mean, just picking a couple out here, the Dutchman's Pass area, 1115, area beyond the Rifle Club, 1,100 acres, Energy Zone at Copper Mountain, 1,200 acres, the bypass and US 95 interchange, 586 acres. It adds up pretty quickly when you start throwing hundreds of acres at a time on there. So there's a massive amount of land that's on this plan, and the only reason something should be on the plan is we have some purpose or some idea that we want to develop that. So I think that that's a problem with the LMP if you choose not to use the word plan, which is actually in there. And again, I appreciate your explanation, but in my experience, that's not how a lot of these parcels were placed on this. And I also want to point out, I understand that this doesn't modify or amend our master plan, but the master plan is what calls for this process. Is that correct?
What the master plan says specifically is at the time of development, clarification, what you're referring to is the code as it relates to the land management plan. Yes, I used the word. In there,
you have to use it once in a while because it's actually what it's called.
Absolutely. In there it says at the time of development, the property has to be consistent with the master plan.
So again, and what I'm getting at then is when these projects are proposed, the discussion should be, is this in line with our master plan? Is that a fair assessment of the process?
Really, this is the first step in the process. And that's why you'll see that the proposed uses that are listed are the applicant's initial inquiry with the city. And as I noted before, it requires many more steps for consideration by the city and the city council and the planning commission if those uses are warranted per the master plan or eventually with the zoning.
Well, and again, I guess that's what I'm getting at. If you wanted to put it into a negative way, if something were proposed that did not comply with the goals of the master plan, it probably should not be considered to be placed on the land management plan unless there's some compelling reason for that.
I think the compelling reason was in the interest of transparency. Because if somebody wanted to consider proposing rezoning a property or amending the master plan for a proposed use, the initial step is to see, is the city even interested in entertaining a lease or sale option?
And I guess that's my point. This seems to have become, anybody approaches Boulder City and says, you know what, I need a bunch of land, go ahead and consider this. And the process should have been, does this fit in with our master plan? If it did not, then the applicant should have been told, you know what, at this time, this does not fit in with our master plan. We will not include it. But so many of these parcels were included